Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Jonaed Iqbal of nodegree.com and the No Degree podcast. As you might expect, he teaches people with no formal education, with no degree, how to get a job, how to make money both in person through the trades and as well as online. So tons of people have been asking me, how to get a job online. People have misconceptions that you need to have a degree to work online. And so we're going to break that all down today. Jonaed, how's it going, man?
Things are going well, and I'm so excited to just share all the things I've learned about job seeking and just really want to emphasize that you don't need a college degree in order to make online from anywhere in the world, especially Latin America.
Thank you. And that's an excellent opening statement because I think there's lots of people who have misconceptions, and I'm sure you'll be able to help bust some of those myths.
Yeah, I'll bust a lot of them because I've hired well over 30 people online, and more than 90% of them did not have college degrees, and they were amazing workers. And whenever I have future projects, they're the first people I'm going to go to.
And you've been at this for a while, right? How long has No Degree been around for?
2014. So August 2014 was when I bought the domain name. I quit my job in 2018 to do it full time. 2022 was a rough year for me. Had a business partner resign. I had another virtual events business that lost like 80% of revenue. So I got a job back. So I'm working a job and doing this full time. But you know how it is as an entrepreneur. It's not always easy, ups and downs.
Yeah, I wanted to mention early on as well that this episode will be a little bit different than some of our other episodes in the sense that Jonaed, he's in Queens, New York. He's a New Yorker. This episode will kind of have nothing to do with Latin America. And we're really going to be talking just a lot about how to make money online, maybe how to get your first online job, or maybe you're just in high school or early on in your career and you just want to know, like, what are the options out there when you have no degree. What are the possibilities, and hopefully this will inspire people that either don't have a degree and or they want to make money online. But I think anyone, even if you have your useless arts degree, you'll still be able to get a lot of value from this episode. Am I right?
Yeah, you're 100% right about that. And you know, it's funny. Someone was telling me the arts degrees are one of the degrees that never, ever pay off. You never, ever make the money back. You don't get a premium. So for those of you getting arts degree, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, so I think I want to ask a couple high level questions first, and then we'll get into the weeds about resume writing, networking, LinkedIn, and some more tactical stuff. But I was just wondering at a high level. I know that you guys have a bit of a job board on your site, and you're an observer sort of the whole industry. What's sort of the split between in-person versus online jobs that are available to people with no degree? Do you find that it's more in-person jobs or online jobs?
It's a mix. There are some very lucrative jobs that don't require college degrees in person, right? You get any of the trades. The fact is, you can't outsource them, right? You can't outsource
Hmm.
your mechanic, you can't outsource your plumbing, you can't outsource your construction. And as technology, right, advances, there are fewer people who are going into the careers because historically these careers were looked down upon. But I know a plumber who makes $1 million a year, right? And again, these are things. But there are plenty of online jobs that don't require college degrees. And here's the thing about online jobs, a lot of online jobs are more skills based. Do you have the skill? Can you get it done? So even jobs that say they require degrees, you'd be surprised. A lot of them you can get them even though you don't have a degree. Just because the job posting says it does not mean it's always a hard requirement.
For sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. Um, yeah, maybe you could briefly just touch upon the in-person stuff. I think the in-person stuff isn't gonna necessarily help for someone that wants to move to Latin America, but I think it's worth touching on briefly because it is a significant portion of the no degree landscape. But also, it could probably help you stack money, and have some sort of job in your home country while you're maybe learning online skills on the side. I think that's totally fine. And then there's also people like in Canada that work like in the oil fields for like 6 months and then they spend the winter in Latin America.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah,
those are good jobs. The seasonal jobs are really good because you make a lot of money in a short period of time, and during the times that you're not working, you can live in a very low cost of living country, and really stretch those dollars. So I've had, I have the No Degree podcast. I've had over 120 episodes. Right, I've had people who transitioned to tech from very different backgrounds. I had someone who's a bouncer. I had someone who's a car mechanic. I know I've seen people on Twitter who are plumbers, HVAC, and yeah, I had someone who's HVAC and he actually transitioned into crypto. Now, the big
nice.
thing is when you have these skills, these are lifelong skills. Now, the funny thing is, one way to make a lot of money is to move to a tech area and have a trade because tech people have a lot of money. But
Yeah.
if you're the plumber and everyone's tech, who's the plumber that they call and who's the plumber that they refer to? And if you know the common thing, sometimes people are like, I can't get a hold of the plumber for at least another month or two. So there's a lot of demand for these areas. And even then, you have to think about even when it comes to networking, right? If you're a mechanic and you move into technology, you will always be the guy, the go to car guy. So when it comes to networking, that's a great way to network. Like people ask you for car things, be like, hey, just check this, just check this. Oh, I'll look at it. And you'll be so good at networking. So I really encourage that when you're transitioning to careers and you're transitioning to online skills, don't forget the other ways you've made money because you can use it to save money or you can use it to really connect with people and it really sets you apart when networking.
Yeah, Jonad, I think you answered that question quite well for our audience. And maybe you could just double down on this in-person to online off-ramp. So kind of getting you're a no degree guy, you get a in-person job first, and then maybe on the side you build some skills in order to work online. I'm sure you've seen some anecdotes of that.
Yeah, so I've seen it. So what ends up happening is what I will always say is the thing about when you have these in-person jobs, always try to figure out like, hey, what insight do I get from this job and how can I take this online? Like I've seen some people, they work in retail, they work in Target, and because of that, they see like, oh, there are these people who are flipping items. Let me look at these patterns. Oh, I see that these items don't sell, and now they go to selling online. Or they start learning about suppliers, they start learning about inventory. I had a friend who has a phone wholesale business. The screen protectors. He used to sell screen
Hmm.
protectors in the mall, and he was
Hmm.
like, "Wow, these screen protectors cost like $2. They're selling it for $20 in the mall. Why can't I do that?" So just realize that anytime you have a job, you're building your skills, and those skills never go away. And then eventually, you may be able to translate it online, or you can translate it to a virtual thing. You can advise other businesses. You can do a lot of things. So don't discount that. Now, what I would say online is you have to have a skill. I would say either some you have to the skill most of the time is on the computer, right? So think
Hmm.
about what you're interested in. So my podcast editor does not have a college degree. I have someone who manages think about like an online business manager. She manages everything for me. She uploads my podcast transcript. She's just like a go-getter. Again, doesn't have a college degree. Then I have people who provide tech support for a platform. Again, none of them have college degrees. And for other people, they learn graphic design, they learn photo editing, they learn video editing. Like my podcast editor, I told him, I was like, hey, I need some video edits. Would you mind learning? I'll pay you extra to learn because he was already good at my podcast. I was like, why not? And he's absolutely crushing it with my YouTube videos. Then the other thing is you have resources like free code camp, Code Academy, where you can pick skills. You can take online courses at Udemy, but just realize that no matter what you have, if you can do it over the computer or on the phone, you can take it anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess let's focus on online jobs. Um, what are you seeing in terms of the landscape for online jobs, and what do you recommend to people who want to get started and maybe get their first remote job?
So it's not going to be easy because you have to build skills. And sometimes people think like you see these things online. Oh, I learned how to code in 2 weeks. Unless you're absolute genius, that's probably not going to happen. First, you have to choose a lane, like what kind of things you want to do. Now, most of the time, tech is one of those things, and tech has like you have data analysis, you have software engineering, you have all these other areas what I would say is figure out what you like doing. Some people may not like coding, but there's like project management. Narrow down an area and then see if there's a certification in that area. If there's a certification in that area, go get that certification, join like an online community, find a podcast, start networking on LinkedIn, even networking on Twitter. I got my current job off a tweet I made, and part of my job is being on Twitter. Then from there, get some project experience. Then the other thing is just realize that you can create your own experience. So let's say you want to build websites for people, right? Most of the time, you're not going to get a website. You're not going to get clients right off the bat. What you can do is find a friend who has a business and or find a local business and say, hey, I'm starting out. You don't even have to tell them you're starting out. Just be like, hey, I'm early in my career. I'm looking to build a website. I'll do one for you for free. Can I use it as portfolio and can you give me a review? Boom, one website done. Then you can maybe next one you do it for free again or you charge. Cool. The big
Hmm.
thing that I would recommend is you have to find a way to get clients. That's not easy because for me, when I quit my job, it took me 16, 17 months to find a job. Then, I mean, to make my first online dollar. But when I did, I was able to scale it. But the big thing I found was LinkedIn was a good source of clients. And now I get clients off Twitter. But to figure that out, it took some time. But I would say you have to know how to network online. And now the thing is, I used to network in person a lot. And honestly, I don't even network in person as much because for me, it's like I could spend, maybe going to a networking event that's an hour. I gotta get ready, I gotta drive there, I gotta come back. So an hour event, maybe it's like
Right.
two
You might get
hours.
like 3 business cards.
Yeah. And then, it doesn't even lead anywhere. Or I could spend 2 hours on Twitter, 2 hours on LinkedIn, commenting way, hopping on calls, getting on intro calls, and boom, I could get a resume. So it's like I'm very selective on in person that look, there's still value in person, but there's so much online. And it's funny, I met my business partner online through LinkedIn and I've never met in person. And we did a business that did over 2 million in sales. Right.
Yeah.
So it's
I,
like,
I would say, to be fair, if you're in a big city like yourself in New York, or you're in like a big city, I would say take advantage of that in-person opportunities. But I think what you're saying is also valuable because you're saying, look, I'm in friggin' New York City and I still almost prefer doing it online. So really there's no excuse if you're in Alabama or
yeah.
Montana or something, right?
Yeah, and look, I'm in New York City. Look, and there are a lot of benefits. It's just I'm more selective, right? I could go to 10, 20 networking events a week, but it's like I'd rather go to 2 or 3. And you know what's funny? I take my online relationships in person. So I have friends from Twitter. Like I had a friend from Canada. I tell people like, yo, if you're ever in New York City, hit me up. I'll pick you from the airport. I picked up 10 to 15 people from the airport. So find a way to mix up because you know what happens is when I go to Toronto, the funny thing is, since I have so many friends, I learned resume writing from a guy in Toronto. I just have a whole crew in Toronto. And then everybody's like, yo, when you come, don't worry. And you know what's funny? I never have to spend a dime because they all pay for my food, right? And I stay at my aunt's. So it's just, networking is just powerful and it leads to so many things. Like that business partner who I've never met online. I hope to, I'm gonna make a trip happen and finding workers and all
Hmm.
that. But it's again, the core is you gotta network. Like so many people, and I get message from people on Twitter, hey, can you find me a job? And it's like, dude, I don't even know you. And I'm not the job store. It's not like jobs come to me. But you know how I got my first hire? I used to live stream on LinkedIn and she used to comment. So we hopped on an intro call. I knew her skills. When I had some extra work, I gave it to her. And then over time, I gave her more work. And she was the one who got me my podcast editor. And she was the one who recruited 20 to 30 people in Belize for my team. So it's like networking is how that happened.
Yeah. I want to return to networking in just a second. But I wanted to just double down on asking, like, what are some of the most common online jobs? Like, what are the most common ways people are making money online that actually works? Um, yeah, I have some follow-on questions, but let's start with that. Like, what are you
Okay.
seeing as like good, like entry-level online jobs?
I mean, the thing is, that's a loaded question because there's so many. There's so
It's
many
true.
that I tell people you got to choose because so many people say, "Hey, be a programmer, build a website," but not everyone's good at that. Like I've seen people go into it and they're terrible at it. So it's like that's not for them. But
Right.
what I
I'll
would
help you
say,
name a couple. Oh, go ahead. But I
no,
guess
I
it's
can
like
name. I can name.
go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so I would say video editing, photo editing, social media management. You have like I do resume writing, so any form of writing. I like people do LinkedIn writing. Um, then you have the website development, you have the app development, you actually have data entry, you have like being a virtual assistant, you have online sales. Like I know someone in, I think he's in Kenya, he got an
Yeah.
appointment setter job. So literally
Yeah.
there's
Setter,
so much.
closer, customer service
Yeah.
rep.
Yeah. So I mean there's literally so many. It's just more that
And so I guess a good way to put it is there's probably a mix of technical and non-technical skill ones, because
yeah.
let's just say someone comes to you and they just literally have no technical skills yet. And we could build that in over the course of 3 months. We could build a technical skill if the person has the motivation. But let's just say they, I don't know, maybe let's just say they need to do it non-technically for
Yeah.
whatever reason. Um, is that possible? Do you need technical skills to make money online, or is it possible to get by without them?
You need a minimum level of technical skills because how are you going to interact with people, right? You're going to have to use software. You don't have to be programmer, but you have
Right.
to learn how to use the software. You have to learn how to use
Well,
online
you could be
tools.
like a English teacher
Yeah.
online, customer service rep, salesman. These
Yeah.
things are more or less non-technical, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Those are non technical. But I would say just the more comfortable you are with technology, the easier time you're going to have. Because there were some people, right? I'm interviewing them and they have trouble getting on Zoom. And I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna hire you and you have trouble checking your email, right? It's you're just gonna struggle. But the thing is, let me tell you, if you're willing to put in the work, one of my technical leads, she didn't even have a computer when we first met. She just had her first smartphone, but
Is
over
this
time
in
she learned.
Belize?
Huh?
Is this in Belize?
No, no, she's in the West Coast.
Okay.
But she did not have a phone. She got a smartphone. She learned how to use it, and now she learned a lot. But she took the time, and now she knows how to use these online tools. But you're always gonna have an advantage the more online tools and the more social media platforms you learn about.
Okay. Yeah, definitely fair enough. If someone was like basically indifferent about what online skill they learned and they just said, teach me the like best ROI online skill, what would you say?
The best ROI is you have to know what you're good at and what type of work you like doing. Because there are a lot of things like obviously if you go into software engineering or if especially if you go into web 3 programming, like if you learn Solidity or Rust, you'll make a lot of money. But I'm going to be honest, that's not for everyone. Not everyone has the stamina, the mental stamina to, program for, you know, 4 to 8 hours a day for months at a time. What I would say is you have to find out what are your strengths because you're always going to make more money when you lean in on your strengths. That's how you're going to make more. And that's how you're going to be able to set aside time to practice and upskill yourself. But I mean, I really think so. Cybersecurity is a very lucrative area. You need to pass like 2 exams that I would recommend. It's the Security Plus and Network Plus. The other thing is software engineering is really high in demand. App development is high in demand. Tech sales is pretty good because if you can sell, you're gonna get a commission, and those commissions can be big. But again, just realize that these things take time, and I would tell everyone to establish their presence and start making money before. It's gonna take some time to make money, but when they do make money, it'll be good.
Okay. Yeah. All these things sound great. I think learning how to code crypto might take a while. By the way, like
Yeah,
I do know how to code. I've been coding for many years.
yeah,
So you can sort of speak to me as someone that understands code. Um, and I think it's easy to get started.
yeah.
I think it's easier than people
Look,
realize.
I think it's easier to get started, but I see a lot of people who are not going to stick with it. Right? Maybe they'll do their hello world, they'll do it, but to get good and stick with it, right? It's something that you have to build projects. You
Yeah,
have to
you
have
have to
some
be
passion.
passionate about it.
Yeah, you have to be passionate because I've known people who like did it and they hated it and they moved to. But the beauty is, if you do learn how to code, you can go into other areas like project management, right? Where you manage coders. You can get into product management. There's product marketing. There's Scrum Master. Things with agile methodologies. All these things, right? That you can get into where the coding background helps, even though you're not a coder.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even if you just cut your teeth for a few years as a coder, you can move on with a technical skill set. And it's almost like if people understand the investment banking world, like you work for like 2, 3, 4 years for Goldman or JP Morgan
Yeah,
or whatever, and it's like the trenches. But then after that, you can do the fun stuff. You can work in VC or a private equity fund or whatever, and you don't have to be in the trenches forever. So it's kind of a there's kind of a parallel with
Yeah, I mean,
the programming
any
world.
look, any career you need to put in your time, right? If you again, if you want a certain type of life, you have to have that upfront investment. There's
Yeah.
just I've rarely seen any way around it.
All right. So we know that there's lots of ways to make money online. Um, we can talk about resume writing. We can talk about networking. We can talk about LinkedIn specific skills. I almost feel like we should just double down one more time on like how does someone maybe choose their skill set or the thing that they should like dedicate themselves to for the next, I guess, not only 3 to 6 months, but then after that. And thinking up another related question is like, how does someone know they're ready to start applying for jobs or receiving work for their new skill?
Okay, so first I would say I'm a certified career coach. So what I always tell my clients is there are four types of skills. There are skills you're good at that you like doing, skills you're good at that you don't like doing, skills you're bad at that you like doing, and skills you're bad at that you don't like doing. Ideally, you want a job that focuses on things you're good at that you like doing. The things you're good at that you don't like doing, you don't want a job in, and you want to minimize those things, right? You do it here and there, but not all the time. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're good in math, go major in math. You're good in science, go be a doctor." But just because you're good at it does not mean you like doing it in large doses. Now, the things you're bad at that you like doing, you want to get better at it so that you move it into the good, the first bucket. And the things you're bad at that you don't like doing, those are things you absolutely want to avoid. You want to outsource, you want to eliminate, you don't want to have to do it. So first you have to identify those skills. Then from there, look at the careers. Like, do you like working with people? Do you like collaboration? Do you like innovation? Do you like, working behind the scenes? Do you like research? Do you like something repetitive? Do you like, working with your hands? So and that's why it's like I'm not giving you a straight answer because I tell people like you have to try things and you have to know yourself because I've seen people go into jobs that they're good at but they don't like, and it's just I don't know, they just leave or
Yeah.
they're miserable.
So what if so you mentioned try things. Maybe some people will resonate with that. Either they're in their home country, they're trying things, they're trying to make money online, maybe they've been spinning their wheels for like 6
Yeah,
months, or maybe they're in Latin America and they've been trying stuff as well. Maybe they're making a bid online, a couple grand, but it's not really clicking.
yeah.
They're pretty far from like 10K a month or anything.
I mean,
How do you get from like trying things to getting to product market fit, quote unquote, to something that's really clicking?
okay, so first the thing is I've seen most people are not consistent enough. And I'm talking about consistent in the same things. And what I would say is a lot of people are not willing to put the sacrifice in. So for example, when I started resume writing, the first few ones I did for free. Friends and families, cool. Did they get results? Boom. Okay, let me charge $100. Okay, got a resume at $100. They got results. Then let me raise my price to 150. So the thing is, you have to I always recommend doing a little free work, not too much. Get your experience, network, and then from there, ideally, when you set a price, you want to have 7 out of 10 people say yes. That's like a formula. So if 10 out of 10 people are saying yes, you're pricing yourself too low. If 0 out of 10 people are saying yes, you're charging way too high or you got to fix your sales. Now, depending on your ticket item, you may have a process where if even 1 out of 10 say yes, you're good. Maybe you charge 10,000 for the project and you only need one, right? So you have to figure that out. But what I would say a lot of people is like they don't stick with it and they don't network. Like so many people, I get these messages on Twitter all the time like, "Hey, I have a business. I build websites." And it's like, dude, you didn't look at my profile. You didn't do a lot of things. I was like, I have 38,000 followers. I was like, do you think you're the first message like this? Like, you got to do something different in your approach, right? And then the other thing
Hmm.
is, I'm going to go and use someone who supported my content. Same thing, how I get a lot of business is they know me. I've supported their content. So if you take a little step deeper, instead of spamming people, you'll get some clients and then find ways to support other people outside your business. So one thing that I've always done is I've supported people in other ways. I've given them business rights, and because of that, it's led to a lot of referrals. But you
Yeah.
have to learn sales.
Yeah, so we were talking about selling yourself, and products and things like that. Kind of leads me to a question, which is basically around what structure of jobs or work people can expect when working online. So I'll pitch this up a bit.
Yeah,
So there's full time employees, FTE, W-2. There's contractors where it's basically like a per hour basis. Maybe it's $70 an hour, but the expectation is like 40 hours a week, and it's basically a full time job but paid hourly,
yeah,
and you're a contractor. And then there's more, I guess, like project based work or freelance work, and websites like Upwork and things like that. Would those sort of be like the three big categories in
yeah.
your mind, or how would you break down the sort of different structures of remote, and maybe like commission only for sales or something? What are some of the big structures that are out there for online work, and what should people be optimizing for? Would it be like FTE opportunities or contractor opportunities?
Now, the thing is, W-2 is going to be a little tougher, right? Because countries have laws like the US, right? If we're speaking about the US has laws on how you can hire internationally. So, W-2, sometimes if they find out HR, like legally, they run into issues. So,
Right.
contracting work
So, by
gets,
the way, my audience is typically Canadian, American, UK, Europe. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you sometimes run into issues, but contract work has a little more flexibility. So I would recommend contract. And then the thing is, look, think about it. If you're W-2, you have benefits in the US. They're useless outside, right? If you have health insurance in the US, it's useless in Latin America. So I would personally go for more a contract role. Now, what I would say is really build a relationship because I have someone in Belize, right? And I give her a set rate. She lives very well in her country, and it's a very good rate for me. Now, the other thing is, I've seen a lot of people do well with project based work and project based work because you'll get paid a certain amount, and then you have to, you'll maybe get one or a few projects at a time, and you'll have periods where you don't. But I would go for the contracting and the project based work because W-2 is just you run into issues. Larger companies sometimes have issues, right? They have laws.
Right.
But
Yeah, I
the other,
guess W-2 is the American term, but
yeah,
there's a, I forget what the form is in Canada, but I'm sure there's an equivalent in most countries where you're a, you're a full-time employee, and if you were living in that country full time, would have benefits.
yeah.
But you're saying that you don't typically either experience that, or you don't go for that, or maybe it's just like too hard, not worth it.
So if you do go for it, you're not supposed to tell your employer. So if you have it,
What do you mean?
tell other. So if you have a W-2 job in the U.S. and you live abroad and it's remote, don't tell your employer you're remote. Abroad, tell them you're in the state because I had someone who worked in. They were in India. I mean, they lived in the US, but during the pandemic, remote, they lived in India. The boss accidentally let it slip, and HR said, hey, the person has to come back within the country in X amount of time, or if they stay X amount, because companies run into issues. If a person is outside of the country for this amount, they can't be classified as an employee.
Right.
So the big thing is don't tell your coworkers, or because a lot of times coworkers get jealous and stuff, so they can't find out. Now, if you want to do it publicly where you don't run into issues, then contracting is the way. Just make sure you know how to get paid in other countries, right? You have Payoneer. I pay someone in Nigeria through Sendwave. There's like Wise.com and all that. So you have to know
Hmm.
that. But I've seen people do it where they kind of tell their employer, like, hey, look, I want to work. We have a good relationship. You know what I'm about. Let's work out a contracting arrangement. And then sometimes the employer save money because they don't have to pay benefits and something, all these other things. And then it's a win win.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. How would you say the No Degree podcast and .com audience breaks down? Is it majority American or
Yeah, for now it's majority US because here's the thing, you know how it is. Building a podcast, building an audience is tough. And if you're trying to cater to all over the world, it's tough. And then the thing is, when it comes to the no degree audience, in other countries, it's very different, right? If you don't have a degree in a third world country, sometimes it's very hard for you to get a job locally in their country. However, if you are getting jobs abroad through networking, your degree doesn't matter, right? Like, how am I supposed to know what school is good in Argentina or Chile? I'm not going to know, right? All I care about the skill, right? So you just have to be mindful. So what I tell a lot of people who are international who don't have degrees is network with people in countries that where they earn more, network with startups and network with people who are flexible in their hiring. They're not even going to ask you about your degree because you built a relationship and you've demonstrated some value and some skills.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. So I'm gonna pose to you an interesting question that you probably don't, or point that you
Yeah,
probably don't get much. So I know that you emphasize networking a lot, and
yeah,
we're gonna get into specific strategies around networking in order to get jobs and opportunities. But I would argue you just need to apply to a lot of jobs,
yeah. And
right?
look,
Because
I
you
that
can
works. You can do that. Yeah,
Because you can just grind LinkedIn, apply to hundreds of jobs, do dozens of interviews, and get a couple offers, right? And you're not really networking, you're just applying and then doing the screening calls and so forth.
yeah. Look, you're 100% right. You can absolutely do that. Look, I write resumes professionally. I've written over 400 resumes. I've gotten people into Amazon, Microsoft, Google, right? I've gotten people raises in the 40K to 123K range. So, I've seen it. Now, the thing is, if you do that, you must have a good resume. And if your listeners want, I have a template that I can give you a Google Doc to that they can use, right? Follow that template. I've tested it hundreds of times. I've had people who've come to me with different templates and they switch it to that and it'll increase the amount of interviews. Now, obviously, you still have to have good content, right? If you have bad content, the template's not going to save you. You still need to highlight
And
your
is this
accomplishments.
template hosted online somewhere?
Yeah, it's a Google Doc, so I'll send you a Google Doc.
Do you
So
want to
it's
DM it to me right now? And maybe
yeah,
even while
yeah,
we're on the podcast, I'm going to ask you specific questions
yeah,
about it.
yeah. Sure. Okay, let me just DM it to you right now. Um, so while I'm
And
doing that,
for
yeah,
context, for the listeners, so myself and Jonaed kind of got connected through Twitter. And yeah, so he'll be DMing me that
yeah,
on
I'm just
Twitter.
typing it right now. So I just sent it on Twitter.
Yeah, and
But
give me a second to review it. And while
yeah,
I review it, why don't you just take a minute to just continue talking about maybe if you didn't even want to network, basically, and just wanted to grind and apply for jobs,
yeah,
how that might look.
yeah. So if you wanted to just network, make sure you have a good resume.
Just apply.
Make Yeah, just apply. So, but you need a good resume because, or else I've
Yes,
seen
yes,
people apply
yes,
to
yes. I
500.
agree. I
Look,
agree. I
if
agree.
you apply to 500 jobs and no one calls you back, then dude, it's your resume. Like, there's no reason why you should never get called back. Or, dude, you're applying for like, I don't know, super senior positions and you barely know how to program. So, what I tell people is have a very simple, clean format. There's something called the ATS, the applicant tracking system. So, when you have fancy formats, you run into issues. So, have a very simple format. Remember, resumes are skimmed, they're not read.
They're not only skimmed, they're like
Yeah,
I
they're
wouldn't say
parsed.
machine learned again. Yeah, but they're parsed. They're
Yeah,
parsed
they're
for
parsed.
keywords
Yeah,
by machines.
yeah, by machines, and recruiters look at it. But again, recruiter average looks at it for like 7 to 10 seconds. If they
Right. There's
like
a
it, they'll
mix of
spend it.
both. It depends on the
Yeah,
company.
and if you look at the format I give you is very simple, simple, straight to the point. Job title, I mean company, job title, dates, and highlight. And most people put numbers, right? If you work at a grocery store, how many customers do you interact with a day? If you pack boxes, how many boxes do you pack a day, right? As opposed to say pack boxes. And talk about the impact that you have. Did you save money? Did you earn money? Did you save time? Did you make things better? Did you increase revenue? Whatever. Figure out a way, highlight that. Doesn't matter what, you have to own your experience. And then you have to be strategic about your applications.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. You see the format. It's again
Yeah,
very simple.
I'm gonna ask you a
Yeah,
bit about this format, and I definitely already have questions. I'm looking right at it.
yeah,
But let's just sort of like buckle the buckle on networking a little bit, and just talk about that for a couple more minutes, and then
yeah.
we'll get into resume writing. So yeah, maybe just run us through like your top networking tips and your philosophies around networking.
Okay. So networking, what I found is the more I give, the more I receive. So you want things back in networking, you have to support others. Now, if you gave everyone $1,000 in networking, you'd probably be you'd be amazing at networking, but you'd be broke really quick. But if I got to spend $1,000 with for a dinner with Messi, I'd 100% do it, right? For networking purposes. So for the right person, it makes sense, right? If I could get a dinner with the CEO of Google, boom, I'm going to spend $1,000. So what you have to do is, but that's not sustainable, right? What you have to do is find something that's low cost to you, that's high value to someone else, and give that away. So for a lot of people, I'll give away career advice. Hey, someone needs help. Here's a career resource. Listen to a podcast episode. Here's some free tips on your resume. Hey, let's spend 5 minutes on the phone. Because when you give someone the info that they need at that point in time, that's low cost to you because information is free for me to give, other than the time. It's high value for them. My friend for networking, he knows a lot about PCs. He's helped people build PCs. If you know a lot about cars, like one kid I did a resume for, I told him, I was like, yo, you worked at a car dealership? If you're networking, tell people you can help them buy cars. So when I needed to buy a car, he told me how to negotiate. You see how, like, when someone's buying a car, they're going to think of him and they're going to be like, yo, you're saving someone thousands of dollars for something you already know how to do. So that's something that I would do. And be consistent, right? Be consistent supporting. Like when I started on LinkedIn, I used to do 100 comments a day, months at a time, right? I kept on it. I learned. And, that's why I made the top 200 creators on LinkedIn, right? I was ranked number 145. So it's like, be consistent. And I'm still, right? And that's how I grew Twitter. I used to do 50 to 100 comments a day on other people. I'm still doing a decent amount, but that's what, set me apart. That's what, you know, when I made that tweet saying like, hey, Twitter, I need your help getting a job, a lot of people supported me because I was always out there supporting them. So make sure in networking, support others. So many people message me asking for a job. Majority of them never engaged with my content, never retweeted, and I know it's such a waste of time.
Right.
The people who,
I think like networking and building a personal brand don't necessarily have to go hand in hand. Like you can network
yeah,
in silence, quote unquote,
you
by
can.
just like DMing people, or you don't have to build a brand, right?
Yeah, you don't. However, building a personal brand and networking is a killer combo. It's just like, why limit yourself, And remember, the personal brand doesn't have to be a big personal brand. It can be a light one, that I'm telling you, you can build relationships just through comments. Like comments, like think about it. I get hit up all the time. Who am I going to hire? The person who's on every single one of my posts or someone who just DMs me? And who am
Yeah.
I going to pay more to? Who am I going to go out of my way for?
Right. I guess with that, you're sort of assuming that you're like networking with decision makers. And it sort of necessitates like a small company. You know what I mean? So it's not
Yeah.
like in the example you're giving, it's not like you're going from no degree into 100,000 person company. Like it's not like you're going into Salesforce or whatever, like a Fortune 500 company. You know what I mean?
No,
But
it's funny.
that's
I've had
possible too. But maybe it's like a different type of networking.
no, you know what? Actually, one of my podcast guests, he's interviewing at Google for $1 million. He doesn't have a college degree, all through networking. So it's one of those. And here's the other thing: you have to network well before you need it. So one of the people, that same person, he was gonna hire me for a job, and he was interviewing. He's like, "Yo, I want to hire you. I may be interviewing. Would you be interested?" I was like, "Yo, let's have a chat." And he was like, "Yo, what would be the total comp?" He's like, "What's your experience?" And he told me like 250K. But I networked with him before he ever was in the position. I mean, he didn't end up going that direction, but you have to like do these things well beforehand, and that's how you get the most lucrative opportunities, right? Like that girl, my assistant in Belize, she got I hired her sister, I hired her brother, I hired her husband, I hired her
Hmm.
neighbor, her neighbor's brother, I hired her other friend, her neighbor's niece. You got what I mean? Like because she was the one who kept in contact, right? And they all got paid. Like they were getting paid $20 an hour in Belize. So and their rent was like 200-300, and some of them were making part-time, just working a few hours a week, just
Hmm.
making a lot. But it's like, I tell people it's like there are many ways to do things, but if you want, just like in business, if you want to succeed, you want to have a multifaceted approach that covers a lot.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. So let's get into the resume writing now.
Yeah,
Um, Maybe give us a little bit of your like pitch and philosophies and spiel,
yeah,
for lack of a better word, on resume writing, and then we'll get into talking about the sample that you gave me.
yeah. So look, resume writing, a resume is a sales document. It's a sales document that a
I like
recruiter
that.
or someone looks at it for 7 to 10 seconds. And you have to understand that when someone looks at a resume, they're also looking at 10, 20, 30, 40 other resumes. The other thing is you have to understand recruiting. The average recruiter, I think more than 40% of recruiters are recruiting for 10 to 20 plus more jobs. So that's not the only job they're recruiting from. And then the other thing is like each job application can get 50 to 300 plus applications. So think about a recruiter. They're looking at 20 plus job. They're recruiting for 10 to 20 jobs. Each of them have 100 applications and they have to find the right candidate for all of them. They have to coordinate interviews. They have to do a lot of that. And they haven't, most recruiters have not worked the jobs they've recruited for. So you have to make it easy for them. So they're going to rely on these systems to parse it. And when I used to work at it, or use the system, it would rank resumes from 1 to 5. Now, if you're a recruiter,
Mm,
are you going to spend your time on the ones or the threes, fours, and fives? You know, and that does not mean that you can't have a good candidate that's a 1 and a bad candidate that's a 5. But from a statistical standpoint, you want to be smart with your time.
yeah.
So
I think one of the most interesting things that you said was that a recruiter is typically recruiting for multiple roles. I think you said like 30 plus roles.
no,
Um,
most of them are 10 to 20 plus roles. For
10
I've
to
read
20 plus. Yeah.
I saw a poll on LinkedIn. 40% of recruiters recruited for 10 to 20 plus roles.
Interesting.
And I knew someone who's recruiting for, I think, 150 roles during the pandemic for nurses during the pandemic. Like, it's crazy. Some of them can be 50 to 70 plus.
But oh, okay, but did you mean like amount of people for one role or
No, no, no.
like
70 different,
dozens of
150,
different roles?
70, 70 different jobs.
Okay, yeah, yeah. No, but like types of jobs.
Nah, it'd probably be in the same basket, but it would be severance. Who knows, right? But it's 70 jobs at a at a company.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but I thought what was potentially meant by that was like that the same HR person, they're recruiting for their accounting division, their sales division,
Yeah, it could be.
their IT division, right? And so they're recruiting for different divisions,
Yeah,
and they might not necessarily yeah, and so there might be maybe things that overlap
yeah,
or commonalities.
yeah. There may be things that overlap, but just realize that there's 70 different job postings. So maybe they may
Mm,
be recruiting for 5, right? But it's still like, obviously the 70 you'd probably get overlap, but it all depends on the company, right? Most of the times companies like to specialize recruiter, so a tech recruiter,
yeah,
HR recruiter, sales
yeah.
recruiter, because they know how to screen the people and all that. But again, companies do all types of things, right? When they lay off recruiters and they only have a few, they're gonna be like, well,
Yeah.
this is a job wreck. So but just assume that when you're applying, the person is super busy and you want to make their life as easy as possible, and you want to make them easy, you want to make it as easy as possible for them to find you.
So how do we make it as easy as possible for the recruiters with our resume, I guess,
So
plus presence?
yeah, so on a resume is a sales document, so you need to make it easy for them to skim. So there's several levels. So the average time a recruiter spends on a resume is 7 seconds. And the reason being, because they're like, next, next, next. Like I've seen absolute garbage resumes. Like I'm talking about like they didn't even Google how to write a resume, right? And you're like, what? Like I've had people who didn't even have their phone number or email on their resume. Like it looked like literally like a fourth grader wrote it. So they're like next. And then what happens is especially in the US, you're getting people from all over the world applying. I've seen people put their passports on their resume. They're putting their religion, and it's like you're not even going to waste your time on that. So that's
Like
next.
passport as in like their passport number
Yeah,
or like
no, no,
page
their
2
passports, dude. Their
is
passport
like the
scan, their passport
scan.
scan,
Yeah,
dude.
that's
It
not
was
the
like,
worst idea to be honest, but yeah,
yeah, it's just like there's so many things wrong with that. But then it just shows like, dude, like I gotta explain this. I gotta explain the basic things of culture to this person, like why you wouldn't do that. They have how many kids they have. It's just like, dude, this person has no idea the customs of life.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Is,
and
is that
it's
is that
sad,
common like in Asia or something to put like your number of kids on the resume?
dude. It's not common anywhere. These are people who should not be applying to jobs. These are people. Look, let me tell you, I'm on Twitter all the time. There are people like, hey, I need a job. How do I find a job? I was like, dude, if I could answer this thing in one message, everybody would have a job. But it's not, there's multiple layers, right? It's like, how do I start? How do I become a good programmer? It's not like, it's a lot of
All right,
layers,
all
right?
right, all right. All right. So I'm gonna start asking you about this
Yeah.
resume a bit. So for anyone that's listening in and can't visualize this resume, perhaps you might know what just like a standard American resume format looks like, and it's basically that. So it has kind of like name and contact information at the top. It has a small summary paragraph. Then it has the experience taking up the majority of the resume, where it says like years worked, and then it says, researched XYZ, designed XYZ, developed XYZ. And then at the very bottom, it has like your education and then skills and interests. And I think there's like a on like on like Google Drive.
Yeah, it's on Google Drive, so you can share the
There's
link
like
with everyone.
yeah, sorry, I think what I was gonna say is I think like in Google they have like resume templates, and
Don't use them.
it
Don't
looks
use the
quite similar to like a Google
Yeah.
resume
So
template.
you got to be careful because my template, if you realize there's no underlines, there's no italics, there's no special
Correct, I did
characters,
notice that.
because the reason being, even though those templates may look better in the ATS, it when it parses the data, it those things have issues. So I've had people come to me with great resumes who weren't getting the callbacks, and I said, remove the italics, remove the underlines, remove this, apply to jobs. They doubled to tripled them on interviews because look, you're a
From
programmer.
italics.
Yeah, because think about it. You're a programmer. Sometimes putting a comma in the wrong place causes issues when it comes to
Yeah.
parsing data. When something is text, but it's classified as a number, that causes issues, right? You've seen that all the time. So it's I've tested it. You want to make sure that the format I use works on the absolute dumbest systems. Because essentially what it does is it parses the thing into plain text. And I don't put
Hmm.
anything that doesn't exist in plain text other than bold.
Okay, okay. So no italics, no lines across the page. I forget what
Yeah,
that's called.
line
Uh,
dividers.
divider
Uh,
lines. Yeah, and then what else?
do you know the pipe symbol that's above the enter bar on the keyboard?
I use a
The
Mac, so I don't know.
it's the dividing. It's a straight pipe. Like people use it to divide sections and stuff.
Yeah, it's just like a
Like, it's
underline
just a line.
basically.
It's a vertical line. It's a vertical line. Like people use it to separate their name and email and
Oh
all.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
not. You
Yeah.
know what I found out? You're not supposed to use that because
Oh,
that's a command in Linux for input output.
oh shit.
So
And
that
then what do you
causes
use
issues.
instead?
I use the bullet point symbol. If you see on my thing, I have the bullet point symbol.
I see that. I
Yeah.
do see
So,
that.
and what's interesting? I tested it because I knew it was an issue. I asked my business partner, who's a sysadmin who worked in tech for 20 years, who works in Linux. He's like, yeah, that's the symbol. So that's probably why. And when I was working with my ATS, I uploaded a resume with the pipe symbol and it says, hey, error in uploading. Please upload the information manually. So again, it's one of those things that these little things, if it can't parse your keywords, you won't rank as high. If you don't rank as high, you're less likely to get called back.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you about the enter the information manually in a second,
Yeah.
but I want to finish asking about this
Yeah.
illegal symbols. Let's just call
Yeah.
it. So you said use the bullet point instead. I feel like
Yeah.
that's also a weird one. Would commas potentially be better?
No, nah, commas don't look good when you're separating out things,
They don't.
right? If you put I'm talking about sections, right? You put your email comma, it looks weird, right? It's not that you can't have commas on your resume, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look right.
But you're pretty confident at this point that bullet points is good.
Yeah, look, I've done 400 resumes. That format, I've obviously with the
Or a
content, I've gotten
dash. What
people
about a dash?
dash is okay. You can put dash.
I feel like dash is more chill than the bullet.
Yeah, I look, it's worked. That's all I use. Like I've done resumes for CEOs, C-suite. I've gotten people into Google, Microsoft with that style. So it's like it works.
Okay.
And I'm talking about people who weren't getting. I'm talking about people who a teacher, right? I got him in an interview at Google as a product manager, right? So this is a guy who's completely non-traditional candidate, very hard to get in, right? So and like another guy, right? He wasn't getting any things. Obviously, I created the content for him, and it was good content. He went from 160K to 283K in one jump, right? So I'm talking about like big monster jumps with that format. Now, obviously, the content is the most important, but the format, like, think about this. It's think about resumes. Like, if you have good content but a bad format, you may lose out on an opportunity. If you
Yeah,
have
I
a
agree
good
with that.
format but bad content, you're going to lose out on opportunities. If you have a good content and good format, you'll get the most amount of
Yeah.
opportunities. Like the
It's
format,
kind of like just putting a bow on it
yeah,
in a way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And think about this. It's like it's all a probability thing. You can still get callback with other formats. It's just you're less likely to. And why would you want to lose out on an opportunity because of formatting? that's just like the worst thing.
Yeah,
That's
I
so
agree
easy
with
to
that.
control, you know?
I agree with that. People might be listening to this, they're at the gym, whatever, and they're like, "What are these guys are just talking about formatting?" But honestly, it's pretty important. And I'm
Yeah,
looking at my own most recent resume, and I was using italics
yeah,
somewhat extensively. Like I'm using italics in like five
yeah,
different places,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, like on each one of the jobs, and then on part of the summary.
yeah. Because you know the
And
other
so
thing.
and so and I'm agreeing with you now that you mention it, and I'm removing
Yeah. And
italics from
think
my
about this.
resume.
Look, you're a programmer, right? When you're parsing data and then someone puts a different type of text, that's like an extra thing you got to actually program,
Yeah.
right? It's just it causes issue in parsing data. And now look, some systems will handle italics. I've just seen people where it's like they came to me with good resumes, removing the italics, boom, they got interviews. So I was like, so how I learned a lot of this was I read things online and I was like, let me put it to the test. And I did resumes, I did free reviews for people, and I said, tell me if things change. There and then okay, I learned italics, boom. We just removed italics, he got more interviews. Removed line dividers, she got more interviews. And through that, I added things and I'm still learning more and more things.
All right, let me ask you about one or two more things on this,
Yeah.
and then we could potentially move on. But I noticed that the resume was also just all black text,
Yeah.
and which is interesting because the Google templates that they'll give you, like they'll have like red text for the word summary or for the word
Yeah.
experience, or it'll be blue for the hyperlinks to your LinkedIn profile or something. So there is a bit of color
Yeah.
a lot of times on a lot of resumes. I'm assuming it's for a similar reason, but
Yeah.
it very much stood out to me. As soon as I opened it, I was like, damn, this is all black and white.
Yeah. So I've read somewhere that some systems don't handle color well. Also, you got to think about when they print it out. They may not print it out in color, so it may come
Mm,
out very differently. And again,
mhm.
I stick to a very simple format because it's like easy to read, easy to process. And you should realize I gave you two format. One is a technical format. When
Yep.
you have a technical format, you want your programming languages on top, right? If a
Yep.
recruiter is recruiting for a Python developer, they're gonna look for that. All your
They need to
experience doesn't
know.
matter.
Yep.
If you need to know what cloud technologies and all that, so that's like the slight difference in that. But yeah, that's exactly the reason, and that's something else I've tested. And again, some systems handle it well, but you don't know what system they're using. Just
Yeah, I would
assume
agree
that
with
they're
that. I would
they're
agree with
using
that.
the worst system.
Everyone's printed a page and the blue or red is like very light.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I would agree with that. One or two more things I noticed about it is there's very little padding or space, so
yeah,
everything's quite jammed together, and then it's all on one page. I listened to some of your episodes to kind of prep for
yeah,
this, and you did say that like two episodes or two, did I say episodes? Two pages is chill,
yeah.
but
2 pages is fine.
3 pages doesn't really make sense. And
Yeah,
and I would agree with you that um I've run into a lot of situations where people are saying like, look, like 2 pages is actually the new norm.
it is the norm.
Um, but the sample you gave me was just one page, so I was just
Yeah,
hoping you could maybe
yeah.
speak on the one versus two
Okay,
page
so
debate.
here's the rule. There used to be something one page, one page, one page. That stemmed from the 2000s when people would print it out and one page was the thing. However, here's the rule. In general, you should only have 10 to 12 years of experience on your resume because look, they're not hiring you for what you did 20 years ago, right? That's not as relevant now and they're really focusing on the last 5 years.
Hmm.
The rule is if you can fit it on one page without leaving out relevant info that's necessary that highlights you well, make it one page, right? But if you if you're trying to make it one page and you can't and you're leaving out relevant things, then keep it 2 pages. So basically, make it as long as it needs to be. That's what I would tell you.
Yeah, well,
Potential,
like so basically, like if you've had like 5 6 jobs, but
yeah,
only 3 jobs fit on one page,
yeah.
you're
Go to two
saying it's
pages.
probably better to go two
Yeah,
pages
and
in order to not have a gap. Because one of the things that I've heard, excuse me, one of the things that I've heard is that recruiters will be like, "Yo, what is this gap?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. Everything is on my LinkedIn. You can go on my
yeah,
LinkedIn for like the full copy, but this is just one page, so it only goes to
yeah,
2017."
yeah,
And they're like, "Yo, what was going on between 2017 and like 2010?" And I'm like,
yeah,
"Look, it's all on my resume, like, or sorry, it's all on my LinkedIn. Like, do some basic research." But like, they're
yeah.
not. Yeah,
No,
they're
dude,
not
let
gonna
me
do it.
tell you. I'm gonna tell you something. They don't do a lot of basic research. you want to make it as easy as possible. Like imagine you're selling a big client and you're leaving out relevant info. And you're like, "Oh, you could check my website for that info." Like, are you going to do that? No, you're going to have the info right then and there. So, and here's the other thing. So, 2 pages is perfectly fine. I don't say 3. What I tell people is like, dude, if they don't like you in 2 pages, they're not going to like you in 3 pages. It's like if you haven't sold them in 2, you failed. And you can cut things out, right? So, the other thing that I would say is so the 1 versus 2 pages. Um, this is what I always tell people. Some people say 1 page, 1 page, 1 page, and I'll tell you, if you came across a very good resume and things were relevant, and you can ask the recruiter or hiring manager, even the people who say 1 page, and it was 2 pages, would you call them back? 99% of the time they say yes. Even the people who are adamant about 1 page, because it's like at the end of the day, if the person's qualified and the resume is good, it's perfect. It's when it goes to like
Hmm.
4 pages, they'd be like, "What is this guy doing? This guy can't even like, summarize things."
Yep, definitely makes sense. Let's talk a bit about LinkedIn. So I guess you're a bit of a LinkedIn expert. You have 38,000 followers on LinkedIn and just generally like a big presence on LinkedIn. So you must know a lot about getting jobs through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'll set this up with one first question, which is like, I guess, what percentage of jobs do you think come through LinkedIn versus other sources, be it Indeed or whatever people are using these days? Is it like, yeah, give me that split or breakdown.
So I don't know the exact percentages, but LinkedIn hires a lot. And here's what I'll tell you: LinkedIn is the only one that's also a social media platform,
Mm-hmm.
and LinkedIn is the only one that's very easily where it makes it very easy for recruiters to find you. So think about this. If I'm recruiting for a programmer and I need a certain level of experience, I can use LinkedIn Recruiter and search up, oh, I got to look for a Python programmer that also knows JavaScript, has the words UI UX, and has at least 5 years experience. I can filter
Mm-hmm.
by company. I can make it so you're making the recruiter's job very easy to find you, right? Like I got hit up for there were jobs that I applied to and I didn't get called back and I got hit up. Look, I got hit up for vice president product manager at JP Morgan Chase. I got hit up for senior technical product manager at Amazon. I got hit up for senior technical program manager. Let me tell you, I'm not qualified to be a VP of product management at JP Morgan Chase. It was like enterprise system. I'm not qualified to be a senior technical product manager because when I asked my friend at Amazon, he's like, "Oh, do you know how to do a Dropbox? Do you know how you do this? How you set up?" I was like, "Dude, I have no idea what you're talking about." So but I got hit up for those things, right? So LinkedIn just really opens up a totally different thing. LinkedIn also makes it very easy to apply because remember the resume is like 1 to 2 pages. LinkedIn you can put so much more, right? They can learn more about your personality. They can see your mutual connection. They can see your content. It
Mm-hmm.
just opens up a totally different dimension and it allows you to be more than the piece of paper because one of the things about a resume is that a resume can only tell so much. It only tells what you did and what you achieved, but your personality is much harder to tell through your resume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree with that. And sorry, just to ask it one more time clearly, like, do you think people could focus like 100% on getting jobs through LinkedIn, or should they do other sources? And then the flip side of that is maybe some people just aren't used to or comfortable with LinkedIn. Can they get jobs without LinkedIn? And or is that like a crucial piece of the puzzle?
Yes to everything. So you can get a job just through LinkedIn. I know some people who don't even apply LinkedIn, right? They just get hit up all the time. Now, LinkedIn has the thing where you can easy apply. I love easy apply, man. I it just click, click, click. That's how I do it, and that's how I got all my interviews when I was applying. Now, if for let's say you don't want a LinkedIn, privacy reasons, who knows? Maybe you hate the platform. A lot of my clients get jobs on Indeed. Just realize that there are over 40,000 job boards, right? There are job boards dedicated just to product managers. There are job boards dedicated to cybersecurity, finance, location. So those are still valid, right? If the job is posted on another platform, you can get it because why would a company post a job if they didn't care? Right? That's what job boards exist for. So, and most of the time, companies use multiple job boards. Now, I will say that ZipRecruiter also has that too, where you can do easy apply. So all these companies have it, and then sometimes different jobs are posted in different areas. So I would say have a multifaceted approach because again, it's one of those things that look. I applied online. I networked on LinkedIn. I got my job off a freaking tweet, man. Like, so I got interviews off, but my current job, I got it off a tweet. So it's like one of those things you never know. But same thing as business. You want to have a multifaceted approach, right? You want to be strategic and open up as many opportunities for yourself as possible.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Um, so yeah, tell us a little bit about like the most efficient way to grind on LinkedIn.
Um, First, I would say observe the platform. Because so many people go on the platform and I look at them, I'm like, dude, why are you using 20 hashtags? Like, do you not see that posts that use 20 hashtags don't do well? So for any social media platform, observe, look at the content as well. I would say the best thing you could do is definitely start commenting. Comments are a form of content, and comment on your ideal things. Use that to get conversation. I get hit up all the time for
Okay.
people who
Hey,
want, yeah, go ahead.
Jonaed, I'm gonna just stop you right there. Without, at the risk of doxing myself too much, I've gotten many jobs off LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and I've never posted anything. I've never engaged with anything at all. I just apply for the jobs. I just go to like the jobs tab and I just apply.
Yeah. Which is very valid and it works.
So tell us like a little bit of what that might look for as well, because I just feel like people will get distracted by this whole like create content thing. Here's the three greatest whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
like it trying to, but that has nothing to do with just like getting a job as a video editor or a programmer
No,
or
I
whatever your
hired
skill
my
set.
video editor off of LinkedIn because of the content he created. So
Yeah, I
it's
suppose.
one of those things. Look, I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying that here are all the ways, and I think people should choose what they want to do, right? So they can take this advice and say, "Hey, content's not for me," and I won't apply. And I think, look, I've had some clients who just all they did was apply and it worked. I've had some clients who didn't apply and all they did was network work. But just like there are many ways to skin a cat, so there's no right or wrong. It's what you want to do. What's your personality? That's all I tell
So,
people.
are you
Yeah,
basically saying that it's pretty common that, let's just say you make some content, it does reasonably well, I don't know, it gets like 100 likes or something on LinkedIn, that you'll start sort of like receiving DMs and opportunities and like work related opportunities?
yeah. I got my recruiter job off of LinkedIn because I had someone I met on LinkedIn, and then when he had an open opportunity, he hit me up, and that was how I got that position. So again, it's one of those things that, like, I have a friend. He doesn't apply. He show like one thing that I do is that a lot of people do. They build in public, so they showcase like, hey, built this website for a friend of mine. Then what happens is, hey, I need some of that. Let's get a
Mm,
conversation. So content helps you
you're
generate
showing
conversation.
proof.
Yeah, content helps you generate conversations. Conversations help you get. They either give you referrals or they lead you to other people. And again, some people want it, don't mind it that way. Like I don't mind it, but some people don't. And there's no right or wrong way. The only way that's right is one that you can stick to, and all of them are valid in their own ways and they each have their pros and cons. But there's
Right,
some
right.
jobs that aren't posted online, or some jobs get crazy competitive, right? Like some of the jobs at Google, right? These high paying jobs that there's so many competition. When you
Like
create
that's not
content,
going to come to you from creating content, or would it?
no, it can. Like
Okay.
that's how I almost got a role at one of those companies, because my friend, again, he was like, yo, they're giving me this director of product job. I need to create a team. Would you be interested? That job was never posted online.
Mm.
And so I was in the running because he was like, yo, you always support me. I like your content. You're obviously a sharp guy. You do this thing. So it really depends what type of content you're creating. Like, don't just create content for the sake of content. But there's some people who create very like machine learning stuff and they keep posting, and then that's how they get their job, right? Like I got my job off of Twitter, off a tweet. I got a developer advocate job. That job wasn't posted online, right? And this is a job that pays six figures, and they let me keep my business and keep running the podcast. And dude, I wake up at like 1 p.m. some days. So I would never get, that's a job that's so hard to get by applying.
Yeah, I think you raise a good question about listed jobs versus unlisted jobs slash
Yeah.
create your own job, I guess. Because a listed job, that's on the job posting section of LinkedIn or whatever job board,
Just
like
apply.
it's gonna get hit up. You're gonna have a lot of
Yeah.
competition. Like you're gonna have 100 plus applicants within 72 hours,
Yeah.
and you can still stand out because a lot of people are garbage, I guess.
Yeah, they are.
But what I'm kind of hearing from you is that a lot of your strategy is maybe going for unlisted opportunities.
No, it's not a lot. It's a part of my strategy is. So it's not, you get what I mean? I'm always a multifaceted approach person. How do I
Hmm.
maximize everything just so that I have multiple options? Just, and I've seen it like some of the jobs that I've seen people get for like, they've like, so I know someone, right? Salesperson making six figures. He, because of LinkedIn content, he went to total comps of 250K. Whereas if he applied online, he would have never broken 150 because through LinkedIn, people know what he's about, and that's an asset that he brings. And he was able to get conversations that he normally would not have been able to get at with just his resume.
Okay. This makes me think of a question around like multiple offers.
Yeah.
Because I feel like people who are getting those 250 plus comp packages, they're probably good at the negotiating game, and
Yes.
maybe part of the negotiating game involves multiple offers. So
Yeah.
maybe you could speak about that a bit.
I tell people the biggest strength in negotiation is you have to have the ability to walk away. If you don't have the ability to walk away, you just won't have the, like, you have to have be really like, you have to have big balls, dude, to like get a crazy offer and negotiate when you don't have anything else, right? So I tell
Hmm.
people you want to get in the process of getting comfortable, getting multiple, like if you know, dude, if you know you're normally getting offers at 150 to 120 to 160K and someone offers you 160, you're gonna be like, yo, let me try for 180. Why not? But if this is the only offer in your life that you ever got at this, are you going to negotiate? No, you're going to be like, dude, this is life changing money. I've never made more than 90K. So I always tell people put yourself in a position so that you get multiple offers, that you get regular interviews on a regular basis, so that when you go in, and then you know your worth, right? If you're getting offers at 140 to 160K, when someone comes to you, hey, we can only offer 110, he's like, hey, it doesn't even make sense for me to interview. I have offers that are 50K higher than you. You got to really offer me something.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely makes sense. So, how do people play it in terms of, I guess, timing everything, and maybe how long do people have to accept an offer? I think some of them are like, you must accept within 24 hours. Some of them maybe give you like 3, 4 days to think about it. Very rare that they even give you like one full week to think about it.
Yeah, I
Usually
mean
it's
most.
sort of like
Yeah,
between like midweek.
yeah. I mean, look, a few days. Sometimes you can extend it to a week. But I would say, in general, you should know what you're looking for. You should have an idea what you're worth, so that if you don't like the offer, that you can negotiate and that you're comfortable negotiating. Um, but I would say always be mindful because so many people. I've seen people ruin opportunities because they got greedy.
Mm,
Because they're waiting for another offer, then the first offer expires because they gave it to the second candidate, and then
right,
this one didn't come through. So I always
right.
tell people you have to be smart about it, and that's why I tell people you have to have the ability to walk away. That if you don't like it, if you do not have the ability to walk away, then it may make sense to take it.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question that it's not it's not 100% correct,
Yeah,
or not like not thought of nicely.
yeah. Go ahead, go ahead.
I'm missing the words, but
Yeah,
um so let's just say you basically you accept both job offers.
yeah,
You're only going to work one of the jobs, let's say,
yeah,
but you accept both job offers, and then you basically just like cancel one a week later, either like before,
yeah,
maybe before they send you a laptop or whatever.
yeah.
Is there any downside to doing, because let's just say you get the offer, you accept the first offer.
And the
let
second
me
offer
just
is
let
better.
me
I get
let
it.
me just play it safe. I'll accept the first offer. Maybe you negotiate like a tiny bit for like
Yeah,
5 grand, but like not really. um You know what I mean? You accept the
Yeah,
first offer, and then the next offer comes in like a week later, and you just accept that shit.
yeah.
But some people might be tripped out about the idea of like accepting two
Yo, let
offers.
me tell you something. I tell people you only have one life to live. You do. Look, let me tell you something. Years ago, we had an intern, right? We found out she accepted another offer. I don't even know what the intern's name is. Like, I could never point out the person I didn't interview. That, you know what I mean? It like there's
They
not
accepted
this.
your offer first,
Yeah, and then
and
they
then they
but
ghosted you.
then they told us, hey, I accepted another offer. Dude,
Uh
I
huh.
don't know the intern's name. I have no idea, right? I could never point out that person. It's like one of those things that's like, yeah, maybe you'll just burn a bridge with that person or at that company, but at the end of the day, there's so many companies that you can work at. And trust me, if it's a sizable amount and it's such a better offer, like it does not make any sense. Because let me tell you, when the company has a bad quarter, they can have a bad. I've seen people get laid off in 2 months, dude. I had someone who started a job, got laid off in 3 months. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna? You can't sue them. You can't do anything. You can't be like, yo, I gave up an offer. What are they gonna do? Oh, it's just business. So the thing is, you also have to treat it like a business. And then sometimes there's just something you can't pass up on. And people talk about it. Just tell them nicely, be like, hey, I got an offer that was good. It's up to that first company to be like, hey, look, how do you keep you? Their job is to give you an offer that
Right.
you don't want to walk away from. That's part
But
of
you
business.
already signed.
Yeah,
But
who cares?
but there's no like binding thing with
No,
like you
dude.
you can basically accept an offer and then just be like, you know what, sorry, I got a dip like a
Yeah,
week or two later, and it's
they
totally
can't force
fine.
you to work. Like, what if you got hit
Yeah.
by a car? What are they gonna say? Look, oh, you're not working. Like, dude, they can't
Yeah.
force you to work, so they can't
Yeah.
do anything like that. And it's honestly, look, that's the risk of doing business. They should have made it so that even if another offer came, that you would have stayed, right? Like my company, like I get paid six figures, right? I have things. Even if I got to offer double what I made right now, I would say no because, dude, I get unlimited PTO. The job is a dream job. I get to keep building my personal brand. I get to keep building my company, part of my job. So it's like, you would need to pay me so much more for me to leave. So, like,
Mm.
my company did it right. Like, talk to them, figure out how you keep them to stay. As a business, if my worker leaves, I'm going to wish them the best, or I'm gonna say, hey, or I'm gonna figure out a way to give them something so they won't even consider leaving, or that they have to get a crazy offer. And at that point, I'm gonna be happy for my employee. Like I'm there to advance their life. If I can advance their life, good. If someone else can do it more, they shouldn't be with me.
All right. I'm going to ask you a couple job stacking related questions, or just
Yeah,
overemployment, multiple jobs
yeah.
related questions. I know it's not like your specialty, but I
No, no,
think
trust
this.
me. I've advised people on how to handle multiple jobs, so
All
I
right, all right.
trust me. I know the tricks.
I feel like you're like turned up now and you're ready
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
answer
I'm ready.
anything.
I'm ready.
And
Let's go.
then not only that, but I interviewed Rolf Haltza. Job Stacking is the
Yeah,
book. Just last week, and that episode will probably come out just
yeah.
shortly before this one. So one of the most hilarious things that's a bit of a mental trip for people is that you could basically just accept a job, almost like pretend to work, and then it would basically take them like 2 months or three
Yeah,
months for them to even like figure out that either your heart's not in it or you're not putting
yeah,
in the effort that they need. And you could basically just keep,
yeah,
and you sort of like pretend to work in the meantime,
yeah,
and you maybe like, you get on like the morning stand up and so forth,
yeah,
and you just like say like very office space things like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I'll look into that, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever. And you can sort of like, and so with Rolf, at one point he was managing 7 jobs at the same time,
Damn.
and but his more median pace is like 3 jobs at a time.
Yeah, yeah,
But he'll be like 5 jobs one at one point, 3 jobs at one point. He's sort of just like constantly like rolling through them a
yeah,
bit, and he'll maybe have what he calls like his main job
yeah,
that's
yeah,
like
yeah.
that he tries to keep stable, and then the rest just sort of like rotate as if you're juggling. I know this isn't your expertise. I know you probably don't condone this, but it's an interesting like mental exercise. And I think the reason why it's an interesting mental exercise is because it speaks to what you were talking about before, which is like the negotiating position of the employee.
So here's what I'll tell you. It's the job of the manager to figure out. So you failed as a manager if someone's not doing work for 2 to 3 months before you find out. Like you should be able to go past the office jargon, right? Like as a manager, if someone comes to me with office jargon, I'll be like, "What do you talk about? Like, tell me. That doesn't make any sense." Someone who like right, so they failed, right, and then they failed as a manager. Their job is like literally to figure out whether or not you're doing that. So look, obviously I don't condone it, but look, people do what they got to do, and I've seen CEOs fire people for no reasons, right? So the business has to have processes to evaluate employees in a timely manner, because that's a failure of a business if someone can go a quarter without people realizing that they're not doing much, right? And they should have an idea of like, hey, how long does it take a developer to ramp up, what they should do, how they should follow up. So I'll share a job stacking story. I was doing a resume for someone, right? This guy worked as a startup. He worked in a band, dude. I did a resume for a guy who was in a band for like 7 years.
Okay.
He did like events and stuff. I helped him, he was making like 32K. I helped him get a job, one shot to 96K as a contract, right? Then he was networking, hustling, right? So he got a job at 96K. He got a job offer at BlackRock at 120K. So that's what I'm saying. Networking was what
Mm.
got him that. And then he was like, "Yo, how do I manage it?" He's like, "Yeah, my first job I finished in like 3 hours. Can I do both contracts?" I was like, "Yo, this is how you're gonna do it. You're gonna do the first job." And I was like, "Yo, make sure you buy 2 laptops, because
Yep.
people get caught because they have emails logged in and they get to work it, and then they're like, wait, what?" So separate out the laptops,
Yep.
and then that's what you do. And then so think about it. In like a year, he went from 30K, 32K to 200K.
Yep.
Like, and look, you're doing both jobs. He was doing both jobs fine. So I was like, yo, more power to you. So yeah, I don't blame people for it. Look, if my thing is, if you hold multiple jobs and if you're doing everything, yo, more power to you. Respect.
Let's talk a bit about HR departments.
Yeah.
So, in this job stacking call that I had, um, one of the most interesting aspects that I found was that he really used the HR to his benefit
Yeah.
instead of a aspect of the organization that could really only be your downfall. Because I think
Yeah.
with the normal employee path is they just sort of like, I don't know. They just sort of like stick it out. They're very loyal. They're very loyal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe their boss one day says, "Look, you got to step it up," or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they get um, like a official warning, and then they get
Yeah.
fired, right? And so what this guy would do,
I already know
or
I already know what he
recommended.
did. I can already tell, but go ahead.
Tell me what you think he did.
He did the document, he used the laws, he used that, like, hey, what cause is it just, and all that stuff, right?
Not exactly. Tell me what you mean by that.
Because you want, when you get fired, right? It's like they have to, sometimes if you go fight it, you have to get like a document trail, right? Like, why are you firing me? What's the reasoning? Is it for just cause? Um, and people start reporting things too. Like, there's some people who report workplace harassment and all that stuff. So then it's like, hey, I was fired for retaliation. I was fired for reporting employee practices and all that stuff.
No, actually, completely unrelated, but I would love to talk about that. So, what he was talking about was basically sort of preventative measures before you actually officially get fired. But
Yeah,
once you feel that the wind is against you and that you kind of get the vibe that you might get fired. And then
yeah,
he has like preventative measures to deal with that. And I could expand on that for a second, but what you're talking about is basically after you get fired maybe there are some steps you could take. And what he basically said was once you get fired, there's nothing you can take. Nothing you can do, sorry,
yeah,
because every state in the states, for example, kind of maybe has slightly different laws, but
yeah,
by and large, it's at will. It's
yeah, yeah,
different
yeah,
it's different in Europe or France or Greece,
yeah,
obviously,
yeah. But
but in
U.S.
the
is at will.
states, but in the U.S., it's basically whatever state is basically at will. They don't need cause, right?
Yeah,
They can just fire you for whatever.
yeah. So a lot of times companies like, um so this is during it's gonna happen, and you want, like, there are ways around it. Like, I knew someone, it was this guy on TikTok. He would say, like, let's say you go into a break room and the employee, like, you have employees talk about sexual contact. He would contact it. He would contact it. He would tell them, like, hey, stop talking about that. And he was like, nobody ever stops. Then he goes to HR, makes a report. That's one violation. So then when you get fired, you'd be like, hey, I was fired for retaliate. They're retaliating against me. So then they have
Mm,
to have like a paper trail for just cause and all that stuff.
mm.
Like let's say you report a workplace violation, hey, a safety violation. Now when they fire you, you'll be like, hey, they didn't fire me for just cause. They fired me because I reported a safety issue, right? And they're like other things like that.
Damn. So you can almost like
A slight insurance,
a
yeah,
moat or
yeah,
insurance, yeah.
yeah,
And so you could do this like well in advance of I'm gonna get fired vibe. You could just
yeah,
do this like at some point, anytime, like sort of opportunistically, just
yeah,
to give yourself like a little bit of an insurance policy.
yeah. I look, that's something that people do. I just tell people like, just be good at your job. Then that's like the biggest
No, I
insurance
get it. I get
policy.
it. But here's the thing is like we're recording this in
Yeah,
December 2022. It's going to come out in the start of 2023. And we're pretty sure that there's going to be a big recession in
yeah,
23, right? And
yeah,
so
yeah.
a lot of people are going to get laid off. And so I think this will be relevant to a lot of people to just think about sort of
Document,
like
document.
disaster planning,
Yeah.
and maybe if they can do things to like heat off the layoff for a little bit, like that's good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I would say is make sure you start saving, make sure you start doing this, make sure you're good at your job. Because again, these are last resorts, right? They may or may not work. And not everyone can look financially fight a legal battle and emotionally and mentally. Like these things are draining, dude. Like they could take a
Right.
while
Well,
before.
usually it won't actually go to a legal battle, but maybe like you could just be like, look, well, we talked about this slightly on the episode. Is if you even like threaten a legal battle, usually like they'll give you maybe a little bit more severance.
Yeah. Well, remember, you don't.
I've never been in this situation, but
Yeah.
it's
Let me
it's
share.
it's pretty epic, right? Because
Yeah.
if you like, it's very scary for a person to go up against a Fortune 500
Yeah.
company and be like, "Look, I'm going to threaten legal action against a Fortune
So
500
look,
company,"
let
because
me tell
they're
you.
lawyered up, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me tell you, don't threaten legal action. Have
Okay.
legal action ready because some people will threaten it. So if you threaten legal action, what are they going to do? They're going to start documenting every interaction they have with you. So when their lawyers come, they're like hitting you at all angles. What you have to do is you have to have lawyers ready, but not tell them. Because if someone
Damn.
says, yo, like, if your business partner says, I'm going to sue you, or, you know, you're gonna get ready, right? Okay, he's gonna sue me. Let me get my stuff ready. Let me start organized record. Now all of a sudden he
Yeah.
sues you one day. Now you're like, oh crap, what the hell? You're reactive, right? So don't threaten legal action. You say, hey, I need some time to review. You go talk to a lawyer, and then you ask the lawyer, what steps should I take? Right? Don't give them time to plan. So what I would say, I'm not a lawyer, so please always, most time people will do a free consult. Like they'll
Yeah.
say, hey, is this worth the case? Talk to like two or three and then
Yeah.
see, right? They'll tell you whether it's worth your time, how much it's gonna, what their retainers are, and then you judge is like, how much am I gonna get out of it, right? Sometimes you can even do stuff without a lawyer. Like, let's say they give you 6 months severance, you can easily negotiate like 7 to 8 months, right? So, because I knew
Six
someone who,
months. Damn, that's a lot of severance.
dude,
Usually
I
it's
know
like two
people who got it.
weeks.
Dude, I know people who got a year, man. I did a client, she had a year, like
What?
severance and shit.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So at certain levels, man, you get that. Um, it all depends how it happens, what the stuff. But in that case, right? So I know someone who was going for a severance, and let's say they had a 3 month severance. The lawyer got them to 4 months, but then the lawyer fee ate up the last severance. So then it was a waste of time. You get what I mean? Like you have to kind of really face it, figure out whether they, do Google searches, figure out whether they violated any laws, figure out, make sure you have documentation, make sure there's like everything was fair and all that. Because it gets really complex, but you have to have like talk to a lawyer. It's just like I don't want to give anyone legal advice
Right.
because
And
it's
I
just
guess
so
you would only do that like after you actually get fired, or is this something that you might do once you
dude.
start getting the
If
vibe that it could
you
go down?
be earlier, the better, right? Like if you kind of see the writing on the wall and you kind of see like, yo,
Writing on
they're
the wall.
screwing.
Yeah, was the term I
Yeah,
was looking for.
yeah. So if they're gonna screw you over because they screwed other people over, make sure you show, hey, I did my work. Here's the emails that show I did it. Here's my documentation. Here's what I did. I meant this and all that. And now they're setting me up for failure. Yeah, or all that stuff. Or they promised me my stock, but they laid me off, and they purposely laid me off to avoid paying me, or all this stuff, and financial loss and
Dude,
all that stuff.
yeah, that's happened. Like what they'll do is like companies will do layoffs like the day before, a week before
Yeah,
bonus season.
yeah. So it's one of those things. And now look, I know you were saying LinkedIn, all that stuff. this is why it's powerful having a LinkedIn profile, because you share the stuff, you have followers, guaranteed virality. Dude, I saw one guy, man. This guy was in India. It was the funniest thing. He talked about how he wanted to take off like a few days for his son's birth, and the company said no, and then they laid him off. Dude, he wrote it. It was like broken English. He was like, Indian guy from India. He was like, this company, I just want to
This
highlight
no
that this
fair.
is no fair. This company high. He tagged the company. Dude, that thing had like 30,000 likes. Like that. I don't know. Even if I never got any money, that would be the best retaliation, right? Like your employer's plastered for like firing you for not giving you a couple days off. But it's you got to be like proactive with these situations.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, yeah. I don't want the whole episode to be about like this
Yeah,
end game thing, but
yeah,
what one thing that I was gonna get at that I thought was funny that the job stacking guy would do is when he saw the writing on the wall, he would proactively reach out to HR, and he would say, my boss is being mean to me.
yeah,
I don't feel like I'm set up for success. And then like every like boss is afraid of HR, right?
yeah.
And so they'll sort of like comply, and you can at very least buy some time.
Yeah, I mean that's why it's like as a manager, documentation, right? If a boss documents like, yo, this guy has only showed up to stand up, he produced zero code, this and that, then right. But yeah, you again, you it's the manager's job to do these things. That's the part of being a manager. It may not be nice, right? It may suck, but that's you get paid more because you're supposed to do these things.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Yeah, hopefully that was relevant to people. Talking a little bit about the end game and I guess like what to do when you get fired. I realize that that's not like your bread and butter of what you do, but I think it's
No, I've
might
learned a
be
like
pretty relevant in
yeah.
2023.
You know what? I've learned a couple of things over time, because look, I've worked with over 400 candidates, right? And I'm talking
Yeah.
about where I'm spending 4 to 6 hours with them. I've had candidates come to me with their resume updates that I've worked with 3 years ago, right? So now I'm at that level where people are switching jobs. So I've seen a lot, that's why I've seen severances of a year, I've seen buyouts, I've seen this, I've seen that, competing offers, I've seen crazy
How do
raises.
people do? How do people get like such good severances? Because I think like either you'll get zero severance because it's not required
Yeah.
by law, or maybe 2 weeks. Like it's
So,
not very common. You
so
have like a Twitter situation where they give you like
no,
three
so
months,
let me tell you
unless
one,
you're like pregnant or something. But
yeah.
like, yeah, tell me about some of these scenarios.
Once you get higher skilled and at a higher level, it's industry standard. So once you start cracking, it's funny. It's like it's not meant for the people who actually need it and it will change their life. It's all rich people, you know. So what happens is when companies get acquired and they have to lay off these people, that's when they get because in this case, their company was acquired, her position was made redundant. She was a very important person in the position. She got a year. I knew someone else. Again, they were making like, dude, her severance must have been like 2 to 500K. I know someone else at
This
Netflix does this.
in acquiring situations.
Yeah, acquisitions. Yeah,
Okay, and this is when they like slim down after an
yeah.
acquisition
They
type
swing.
thing,
Yeah, so they have to like pay out the
like the
departments and all that.
synergies, quote
Yeah,
unquote.
yeah. That buzzword. But
Yeah.
there
Okay.
was my friend was interviewing at Netflix. Right, the position was 1.2 million, right? Because
Per
Netflix,
year?
yeah. So total comp, total. Yeah, I mean Netflix is mostly cash. They don't. It's not even stock. So it's like, yeah, all cash. Like whatever the benefits. Total comp was 1.2 million.
Jeez,
Now,
okay.
how Netflix works is, yo, we're gonna keep you for a year. You're gonna work your ass off because we pay like a 50% premium, and we're gonna fire you. And when he gets fired, he gets a 3 month severance. So imagine
Uh-huh.
1.2, you get a 400K severance. But a lot of
Yeah.
times, man, these severances they're reserved for people who make above 200K plus because that's the industry standard. Because what happens is at this level, people can afford lawyers. So what you're gonna realize is once you start making above 150 to
Ooh.
200, it's a totally different ball game. These people have much more negotiating. It's not like these are 4 times more skilled people. It's just these people have set themselves off and have enough savings that they can lawyer up, that
But
they can
what is
command power.
lawyering up even gonna do though?
It's a legal battle. Like, do you want to? Does the employer? It's a PR battle. It's a legal battle. Settlement battle. Like, think about it. Corporate law firms are expensive, right? You may pay
Yeah.
retainers 5, 10, 20, 30K. You're doing this 3 month legal battle. Might as well
But
if you're
here's what I don't get though, and sorry to cut you
yeah
off, which is that Like the whole United States is like at will anyway. They don't need a reason to fire you. They can fire you just because they want to save money.
Honestly, it's just that you can still remember in the US you can sue, right, for anything. It's just most people don't, right? Like, dude, I knew a guy, he had a felony, right? What he would do is he would apply for a job, and the rule is if you can't discriminate against someone with a felony if they have a felony that's not related to the job. He literally he had us for, let's say, some type of fraud. He'd applied for like warehouse associate at Lowe's, get rejected, he'd sue and he'd settle straight, like easy settlements, 5K, 5K, and that's all he did. So there are
That's
ways, man.
funny.
It's like a different system. Like once you know, you know. And I'm telling you, like once you make above a certain amount, companies get acquired. It's also layoff scenarios. Like
Layoff scenarios.
layoff
Yeah.
scenarios.
I so let's just
Yeah.
say that either the person's like not good or the company is slimming down. I'm not sure if that makes a difference.
I think when it's slimming down, it's not when you're fired. It's when you're slimming down that these happen, you know?
Mhm.
And then, like, obviously, yours uncommon, but trust me, people will get, like, I've seen people, they get laid off, they get a severance, and they find a job within a week and they're getting crazy double paid. But, honestly, it's like, I'm telling you, it's two different working classes. There's like a class of people who get severances and a class of people who don't. It's like I'm telling you, it's like a total, like as you see executives and management, their thing is totally different. Like they get crazy golden parachutes. You've seen it, right? Where these executives like they'll mess up the company and they'll still walk away with a golden parachute because it's a totally different ballgame.
How can you set yourself up to get one of these very generous severances?
I would say start making above 200K because it's a
But
different. Remember, it's like a different society. It's a different group of society.
here's my
Unfortunately,
thought though is that like if a company was to try to save money, they'd probably be trying to get rid of like useless middle management making quarter mil a year first, right? So you might
yeah.
actually be quicker on the chopping block if you make a lot of
No,
money
they
and don't
look.
have technical skills. I mean, but I know you're saying, but like so what is it what actually does it matter that they make more? I get that they could hire lawyers just because they make more, but like there must
Yeah,
be a bit more to it than that, right?
honestly, it's like negotiation power. Like that's really what it comes down to. They can negotiate, they can stall out, they make the process harder. If they make the process harder, that costs money. Like even if they're gonna lose, it still costs money.
Yeah.
Whereas like people at the lower level, they don't know. Like I'll tell you something. Like, and this is FedEx, right? I think FedEx or UPS in New York City, they get a lot of parking tickets. They were gonna fight every single parking ticket. It would have caused a backlog in the court system for 3 years. And then New York City was like, all right, we got to negotiate. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just different when you have negotiation power, right? Like, even when you see it, like plea deals versus law, right? So the law gets a little tricky. Obviously, I'm not giving you like the full articulated answer, but I just know it happens. So I'm trying to articulate to the best of my ability, but I've seen it happen. It happens, you know?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Hopefully we haven't belabored the point too much, but
Yeah.
yeah, definitely something to look into more. Yeah, man. So we've already been going for like a solid hour and a half here. I feel like we did a good job of covering kind of like in person and online opportunities, resume writing, networking, LinkedIn, job versus contractor, the landscape, multiple offers, negotiations, end game if you're getting fired, severance, etc. Um, so we covered a lot of ground. Are there any sort of just random things that got you fired up that we didn't
No,
mention, or things that you want to go over?
I mean, look, I could talk about this all day. No, but it was cool. Like, look, I always tell people be smart about it, be strategic, open yourself up, try new things. If you don't like it, you can always scale back. But just realize that, especially now, the future is going to be more towards people without degrees. The future is more skill based because at the end of the day, if you can solve a problem, I don't care what your background is, right? If I need my podcast edited and you can edit my podcast, cool. If I know you can double my revenue, I don't care about your background, right? So find ways to prove competency, find ways to upskill, put yourself out there, network. You just never know where it can lead to.
Yeah, I agree with that. Um, I have a question, which is
Yeah.
let's just say there's some high school kids listening to this, and they're thinking, should I go to a prestigious university? Should I go to maybe Rutgers in New York?
Yeah.
Or should I just start working? Or should I do a trade? They have so many opportunities. What would you tell some high school listeners out there?
What I would tell high school listeners is there's something called Gallup Strength Finder test. I would highly encourage them to take that. Now, look, I am Mr. No Degree, right? I own nodegree.com. What I would tell them to do, listen to my podcast, listen to other podcasts. Now, I tell people going to college is a business decision. For some people, it is a good business decision. For a lot of people, it is not. If you can go to college for very cheap or free scholarship and you're a good student, hey, it may make sense to go. However, I come across way too many students who have no idea what they want to do. They just want to go to college. That's complete waste. Imagine I told you like, "Hey, I want to start a business. I'm going to take out a 100K loan. I'm going to open a store, but I don't know what product I'm going to sell." You're going to be like, "Yo, you're a fucking idiot, dude. Like, what are you doing?" But we have all these fucking idiots who are sort of doing that and then they have nothing to show for it. So do your research. And then the other thing is, don't choose a career because your parents want you to. I know so many people who choose careers based on what other people tell them. You have to choose a career because this is what you want. And I would highly encourage you, maybe take a year off. It's okay to do that. Get some work experience because I know, the common story. People will want to be a doctor or a nurse, and then they don't like the sight of blood. And it's like, well, if you volunteered at something and you saw blood, you would have known that, right? So you got to try things, learn yourself. It's a lifelong journey. It's okay to switch careers, but explore different options. Put yourself out there. Start networking. Start building skills. And I've had people who went to college for a year dropped out. I have people who went to work right away, and it worked out. I've had people who went to college after 5 years, worked out. But there's no right or wrong answer. The fact is, you just got to go through life, and learn and figure yourself out. But you have to learn your strengths and your weaknesses to find out what the answer is for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um, do you think that people who are like 17, 18 years old would get discriminated against in the job market if they wanted to just start applying to online jobs right away? Or do you think that, and I'm sure you do, that as long as they can present themselves professionally, that they can just start working, and there's no difference between an 18-year-old and a 21-year-old.
So I'll tell you that I would say there's not much difference between 18 and 21. There's difference between 18 and 25 because emotional intelligence, there are some things that they don't get just due to lack of experience.
Hmm.
However, a 18-year-old who hustles, the world is their oyster. Let me tell you, people love helping out young kids who are out there doing things, right?
Hmm.
You're
That's
18 year
true.
old, you're building an app, and you post it on Twitter. Boom. I see people, I know developers 17, 18, but they have to put in work. So just realize that there's no way around doing work. You can get it. Obviously, you're going to get some due time, but you have to think about it this way. You can go get work experience. So by the time you're 22, you have 2 to 4 years of work experience, and now you're competing with other people who've just basically had intern experience. So you can you can do a lot of upskilling in 4 years, right? While your friends are parting away or taking philosophy 101 or econ 102 and learning the basics, you're out there working, you're out there saving, you're out there being smart. You can go very far, but you have to not waste that time. So many kids, like, they're wasting that time. They're not being smart about it. They're not upskilling. But I would say it's really important to increase their emotional intelligence and pick up some skills. Because look, the thing is, if you live at home and you're starting to make like 15 to 25 bucks an hour at that early of an age, you save up some money. Don't be a stupid idiot like most guys and buy a new car. Start saving, start investing. You will have a head start for the rest of your life. And I
Yep.
know people who are 22 making six figures. They went to a boot camp, got 2 years experience, and now they're 100K.
100%. And then last question would be, we're going into 2023, could be a weird year
Yeah.
economically. Any special advice or trends that you're seeing on the horizon for 2023?
So look, it's one of those things. I do think recession, but it's just one of those things you never know. But I also think that all people should always be ready for a recession, right? Ready to take action. You want to be proactive and not reactive. Regardless whether it's boom economy or not, like, even if it goes well, you could always be laid off from your job, right? Things are changing. Advancing. AI is advancing. be smart about it, network, keep building your life. Do you mind if I plug something in of mine?
Yeah, yeah, we're
Okay.
definitely at that time, man. Go for it.
Yeah. So look, I released a resume course actually. It's like 4 to 5 hours of content. So in this thing, I went over like the 10, 15 minutes. I go deep into resumes, right? The breakdowns, the ATS, job search strategy, LinkedIn profile optimization, LinkedIn recruiter, networking, salary negotiation, interview prep. It's like 4 to 5 hours long. Um, I'm making it right now, so the first 100 people get it for $147. I'll raise it after that, but I want to keep it affordable. But it really goes into how to do that so you can find the job, you can be smart about it. And, I tell people, check out the No Degree podcast, right? Interview people without college degrees who've made all over, right? I've had people who made, anywhere from 50K to I've had people who've hit, the 750K to almost a million mark in totally, like money made
That's
per
dope.
year. Yeah.
Sweet. So tell the people one more time where they can find you. There's nodegree.com. Where else?
You can find nodegree.fm, so the No Degree podcast. The resume course sits on something called Pro Career Academy. Anybody who buys that appreciate that, but I understand not everybody wants to spend it, or doesn't may not have the money, especially if they live abroad. So I also gave you the Google Doc that has the free thing. That's the template. It doesn't go into why that template works, but that template works. And they have to figure out how to write the content, but find me on LinkedIn, Jonaed. I'll give you the links in the show notes. I'm on Twitter, right? I'm having fun on TikTok. Follow me at No Degree. I'm trying to really grow there, but I'm just grinding and hustling, man.
Sweet. And what's your Twitter handle again?
No Degree, DOTCOM.
Sweet. And you'll, of course, be engaging with at My Latin Life on Twitter.
100%. Yeah, let me actually like some tweets right now.
Sweet. So this has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast, nodegree.com, and Jonaed, the host of the No Degree podcast. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.